Ladies and gentlemen, when you step outside on a clear night and look up, the stars don't just shine, they whisper. They tell a story of everything that came before us, billions of years of collisions and explosions, quiet stretches of darkness, followed by sudden bursts of light. Every atom in your body was once inside a star. Every spark of thought you've ever had came from that ancient dust. And tonight, we gather here because that same cosmic inheritance is urging us to push further, to question what's possible, and to build a future worthy of those stars. I stand before you as someone who has spent a lifetime exploring the most complex system we know, the human brain. Not just as a collection of neurons, but as a living network that encodes memory, ambition, love, curiosity, everything that makes us human. Over the years, my work has taken me from sterile research labs to crowded hospital wards, from quiet mountains where I measure the brain's subtle rhythms to roaring launch pads where human ingenuity defies gravity itself. And every step of that journey has convinced me of one simple truth. The greatest frontier is not merely out there, among the planets, it is also inside each of us. When I received the invitation that brought me here, it wasn't about fame or spectacle. It was a call to action. A reminder that the boundaries between technology, health, and consciousness are dissolving faster than most people realize. We are on the edge of a revolution where our understanding of the brain will reshape how we live, heal, and even define life itself. Imagine a world where paralysis is no longer a life sentence, where memories lost to disease can be restored, where the barrier between thought and action is measured in milliseconds instead of years of therapy. Consider the story of a young woman I met during early clinical trials of neural interface technology. She had lost the ability to move her limbs after a devastating accident. For years, she communicated only through the faintest eye movements. But when we connected her brain signals to a robotic arm, she reached out and grasped her father's hand. It wasn't a miracle. It was science meeting relentless human determination. And in that moment, I understood that the divide between what we imagine and what we achieve is far thinner than we think. The same principles that let a rocket leave Earth, precise calculations, feedback loops, unshakable curiosity, apply to decoding the brain. Neurons fire like engines. Networks synchronize like orbital mechanics. Every memory you hold dear, every bold idea that keeps you awake at night, is a launch sequence waiting for ignition. We stand at the threshold of fusing biological intelligence with the tools we've built. Not to replace what makes us human, but to amplify it. When we merge the adaptability of the mind with the precision of machines, we're not creating something alien. We're honoring our deepest instinct to evolve. The real question is not whether this will happen. It is whether we will guide it with wisdom, ethics, and compassion. I have spent countless hours with engineers, physicians, philosophers, and dreamers. Together we ask, how do we make technology that serves life rather than consumes it? How do we build systems that heal rather than divide? The answers are never simple, but they begin with a willingness to confront our own fears. We fear losing control. We fear becoming something other than human. Yet history shows that every leap, fire, the wheel, electricity, flight, has been met with the same doubts. And each time, humanity grew stronger, more connected, more capable of awe. So tonight, as you listen, I invite you to imagine not just what's next, but what's necessary. The next great era of exploration will not be about distance. It will be about depth, the depth of our compassion, the depth of our understanding of the brain, the depth of our commitment to each other. This is the first portion. It's designed to flow seamlessly into the next sections, where I'll delve into cutting-edge neuroscience, the emotional stakes of merging technology and humanity, and a powerful closing vision. When you're ready, just say, continue, and I'll pick up exactly where I stopped. Every great leap begins with a question, and the question guiding our work is deceptively simple. What does it truly mean to understand the human mind? We can measure electrical signals, map brain regions, and chart chemical cascades, but understanding is more than data. It's the recognition that every spike of activity represents a story. A mother's memory of her child's first steps, a scientist's sudden flash of insight, a musician's fragile inspiration that becomes a symphony. The brain is not a cold machine. It is the living archive of everything we cherish. When we build tools that can listen to those signals, we are not just creating medical devices. We are learning the language of thought itself. And like any powerful language, it can heal or it can harm. This is where responsibility becomes as critical as innovation. In laboratories around the world, we are already witnessing breakthroughs that would have seemed like science fiction a decade ago. Implants that allow the blind to perceive shapes and light, algorithms that translate brainwaves into words, stimulation techniques that lift people out of deep depression when nothing else has worked. These are not distant dreams. They are happening now in real hospitals to real people who are walking out into the sunlight of possibility. Yet with every step forward, we face questions that go beyond engineering. Who decides how these technologies are used? Who protects the sanctity of a person's inner life when thoughts themselves can be translated? Regulation and policy matter, but so does a deeper cultural ethic, one that values empathy as much as efficiency, that recognizes the brain not as property, but as the essence of being. I think of a patient I met last year, a retired teacher who had lost nearly all motor control to a degenerative disease. He once spent his days guiding children toward curiosity, helping them discover the thrill of asking, why? When we introduced a neural interface that let him move a cursor with his thoughts, his first message was a single word, hope, not help, hello, but hope. That is the real currency of this work, not profit or prestige, but the restoration of something invisible, yet immeasurable. Hope is what drives a rocket engineer to perfect a launch system after countless failures. Hope is what propels a researcher to sift through terabytes of neural data, searching for patterns that could ease human suffering. Hope is what connects a child gazing at the night sky to a scientist peering into a microscope. These worlds are not separate, they are threads of the same human tapestry. There is a profound symmetry between exploring outer space and exploring the brain. Both demand courage to face the unknown. Both require tools that seem impossible until we build them. And both remind us that we are not passive passengers in the universe. We are active participants in shaping it. Just as reusable rockets have lowered the barrier to the stars, new neuroscience is lowering the barrier to understanding consciousness itself. Imagine a future where someone who has never heard music can experience a symphony through direct neural stimulation, where memory disorders like Alzheimer's are treated not with guesswork, but with precision rewiring, where creativity is no longer bound by the speed of our fingers on a keyboard. This is not about escaping our humanity, it is about extending it. But we must never forget technology amplifies intent. A tool that heals can also harm if wielded without care. We cannot simply innovate and hope for the best. We must build ethical frameworks as meticulously as we build circuits. This is why conversations like the one we are having tonight are essential. It's not enough to be brilliant, we must also be wise. In the quiet moments of research, when a single data point changes everything, I often think about how small we are in the cosmic scale, and yet how vast our potential is. The same universe that forged the elements in our cells also gave us the capacity to reflect, to create, to dream. That is no accident. It is an invitation. The invitation is to become stewards of our own evolution, to use knowledge not as a weapon, but as a bridge, to see the brain not as a frontier to conquer, but as a partner in a grand dialogue between biology and imagination. This work is not about me or any single person. It's about the collective will to move forward together. Engineers and artists, doctors and philosophers, parents and children. All of us have a role to play. We are standing at the threshold of a future where disease is not destiny, where thought itself can illuminate new paths, where our species learns not just to survive, but to thrive in ways we are only beginning to glimpse. And so I ask you to hold this vision with me. Picture a child born today who will grow up in a world where the phrase incurable is rare, where mental health is cared for with the same urgency as physical health, where technology and compassion are not opposites but allies. That child's future is shaped by the choices we make right now, in laboratories and legislatures, in classrooms and living rooms. The cosmos is calling us outward, but it also calls us inward. To map the stars and to map the self are not competing missions. They are reflections of the same quest to understand where we come from and where we can go. Our tools may change, but our purpose remains constant: to reach, to learn, to build, to love. That is why we are here. That is why the invitation matters. It is a reminder that our greatest experiments are not confined to test tubes or launch pads. They are written in the resilience of the human spirit and the boundless complexity of the human brain. And as we take our next steps into this unfolding era, may we do so with courage, with humility, and with an unshakable faith in what we can achieve together. When we join our intellect to our empathy, when we marry discovery to duty, we become more than a species of survivors. We become authors of a story that began in the stars and continues right now inside each of us. So let us begin not with fear, but with wonder. Let us build a future where every thought has room to grow, where every mind is honored, and where the universe within is as celebrated as the universe beyond. The journey is ours. The time is now. Every journey worth taking carries an undercurrent of risk. We know this from spaceflight, from medicine, from every act of daring that reshaped the human story. Yet risk is not the enemy, complacency is. The brain evolved through millions of years of adaptation, and it thrives on challenge. Each time we confront the unknown, whether by launching a rocket or decoding a neural signal, we engage the same circuitry that once pushed our ancestors to cross oceans and climb mountains. Progress is written into our biology. But progress without purpose can drift into chaos. As our ability to interface with the mind accelerates, we must also deepen our capacity for reflection. Imagine a society where thoughts could be recorded as easily as photographs. Imagine the possibilities for understanding, for empathy, and the dangers of exploitation. Technology never arrives in a vacuum. It arrives in a world of human choices, and so we must design not just devices, but values to guide them. One evening not long ago, I visited a rehabilitation center where patients were testing a new generation of brain-computer interfaces. In a quiet room, a young man, once an athlete, focused on moving a digital sphere across a screen using only his thoughts. The sphere glided, hesitated, and then, with a sudden surge of precision, followed his intent perfectly. His eyes lit up. In that moment, he wasn't just controlling a cursor, he was reclaiming agency. Watching him, I was struck by the profound truth that freedom can be measured in the smallest motions and dignity can be restored one neural impulse at a time. These breakthroughs remind us that the essence of technology is not steel or silicon, but story. Each innovation carries the narrative of someone's struggle, someone's resilience, someone's dream of a life less limited. When we talk about brain-machine symbiosis, we are really talking about giving more people the chance to write their own next chapter. This is where the parallel to space exploration becomes unavoidable. When we build rockets, we are not merely transporting hardware into orbit, we are extending the reach of human potential. The same applies to neuroscience. Each implant, each algorithm is a launch pad for the mind itself. The destination is not a distant planet, but a deeper understanding of consciousness and choice. Some ask whether merging biological and artificial systems might dilute what makes us human. I believe the opposite. it can reveal our humanity in sharper focus. Machines do not dream, they calculate. But when a human being uses a machine to express a thought once locked inside, we see creativity and hope in their purest form. It is not the circuitry that inspires us, it is the person whose life expands because of it. There will be missteps. Every pioneering effort carries them. Rockets explode, experiments fail, policies lag behind invention. But these are not reasons to retreat. They are reasons to proceed with wisdom and transparency. In my own work, I have witnessed how setbacks become fuel for insight, how apparent dead ends can pivot to breakthroughs when approached with humility. Failure, when embraced honestly, is a catalyst for growth. As we stand at this threshold, the call is not only to scientists and engineers. It is to teachers who will inspire the next generation of thinkers, to artists who will help society imagine futures worth striving for, to citizens who will shape laws that protect dignity and freedom. The brain is not the domain of a single profession, it is the common inheritance of humanity. Think of a child who has never walked but may one day run because we dared to connect biology with technology. Think of an elder whose fading memories might one day be brightened by carefully tuned neural signals. These are not distant hypotheticals. They are lives that could be changed in our lifetimes if we choose to act boldly and wisely. I often reflect on the night sky, a reminder of how small we are and yet how boundless our reach can be. The same cosmic processes that forge the iron in our blood also shape the neurons that allow us to wonder about our own existence. This connection between the infinite and the intimate should guide our steps. We are not isolated creatures on a fragile planet. We are participants in a vast unfolding story that began long before us and will continue long after. Our task, then, is not merely to survive that story, but to steer it toward meaning, to build tools that extend life, to foster communities that cherish consciousness, to ensure that the power we unleash serves the greater good. This is the responsibility that accompanies every discovery, to match our technical brilliance with moral clarity. The invitation that brought us here tonight is not a summons to a single event. It is an invitation to a way of being, a call to curiosity, to courage, to compassion. It asks each of us to look inward with the same awe we feel when looking at the stars, and to recognize that the frontier of the mind is as infinite as the cosmos itself. So, as we leave this gathering and step back into our daily lives, let us carry with us a renewed commitment to exploration in all its forms. Let us champion research that heals, policies that protect, and education that empowers. Let us celebrate the spark of discovery wherever it appears, in a laboratory, a classroom, a garage, or a quiet moment of personal insight. The journey ahead will not be simple, but it is ours to undertake together. We are the generation that can ensure that the fusion of mind and machine elevates rather than diminishes, that it liberates rather than confines. We can choose a future where technology amplifies empathy, where science deepens our reverence for life, where every human being has the chance to realize their potential. Ladies and gentlemen, the stars are not silent. They are waiting. The neurons in our brains are not idle. They are ready. The universe within us is vast, and the universe beyond us is calling. Let us answer boldly, wisely, and with hearts as open as our minds. When we choose to answer that call, we're not just accepting a challenge, we're honoring a lineage of curiosity that stretches back through every generation before us. Our ancestors once looked at the same night sky, wondering what lay beyond the horizon. They carved stories into stone, charted the movement of stars, and built tools with trembling hands. Their courage lives in us. Every question we ask, every risk we take, is an echo of their audacity. The frontier we face now is both outward and inward. Outward, toward the galaxies that remind us how vast possibility can be. Inward, toward the intricate symphony of cells and signals that create our thoughts, dreams, and consciousness. These two frontiers are not rivals. They are reflections of the same desire to know ourselves and the universe we inhabit. I often think about the patients and pioneers who have guided me along this path. There was the young pianist whose degenerative disease silenced her hands, but not her music. With an experimental neural interface, she learned to play again by imagining the movement of her fingers. Sensors read her brain's intent and translated it into notes on a digital keyboard. The first time she heard her melody resonate in the room, she closed her eyes and wept. She told me later that it felt like reclaiming a lost part of her soul. Moments like that remind us why this work matters. They strip away abstraction and bring us face to face with human resilience. They teach us that technology at its best is not about cold efficiency, but about restoring connection to our bodies, to each other, to the essence of who we are. Yet we must remain vigilant. The tools that give voice to the voiceless can also be misused. Privacy, consent, equity. These are not afterthoughts. They are the foundation of progress. If we neglect them, we risk building a future where only the privileged benefit, where thoughts can be commodified, where the sanctity of the mind is compromised. The responsibility to prevent that belongs to all of us, scientists, policymakers, citizens alike. Consider what it means to live in a world where neural data is as valuable as gold. Will we protect it as fiercely as we protect our identities? Will we ensure that a breakthrough for one becomes a breakthrough for all? These questions will define the coming era as surely as the first moon landing defined a generation. And still, I am optimistic, because alongside every potential hazard, I see people choosing integrity. I see researchers who refuse to cut ethical corners, engineers who design with privacy in mind, communities that demand transparency. I see a global conversation emerging that places humanity at the center of innovation. That gives me hope. Hope is more than an emotion, it is a discipline. It is the decision to believe in better outcomes and to work toward them, even when the path is uncertain. It is what keeps a launch team focused through countless tests and sleepless nights. It is what keeps a patient undergoing experimental treatment steady through setbacks and pain. Hope is the quiet fuel of every breakthrough. Tonight, as we share this space, I ask you to carry that discipline forward. Let it guide how you teach your children, how you build your companies, how you vote, how you dream. Let it shape how we think about the brain not as a mere organ, but as the seat of creativity, empathy, and wonder. Because in the end, the true measure of our progress will not be the sophistication of our machines, but the depth of our humanity. It will be how compassion scales alongside computation, how empathy grows alongside engineering. It will be whether we remember that every neural signal we decode belongs to a person with memories, hopes, and an unrepeatable story. So as you leave here tonight, carry with you a sense of both urgency and reverence. Urgency, because the work ahead cannot wait. Disease does not pause, and opportunity does not linger. Reverence, because we are treading on sacred ground, the landscape of the human mind. Look up at the night sky as you walk home, and know that the same atoms that burn in distant stars are firing in the neurons of your brain. Feel the electricity of your thoughts, the quiet miracle of being alive right now, capable of shaping the next chapter of our collective journey. Ladies and gentlemen, the invitation that brought us together is more than a meeting. It is a moment of choice, a chance to say, with action as much as words, that we will explore wisely, create boldly, and care deeply. The future is not something that happens to us. It is something we build thought by thought, connection by connection, heartbeat by heartbeat. Let's build it together with courage that matches the cosmos, with empathy that honors every mind, and with the unwavering belief that our greatest discoveries lie not only beyond the stars, but within the extraordinary universe of ourselves. And as we take those steps, one experiment, one insight, one collaboration at a time, remember that every advance in understanding the mind is also an advance in understanding each other. The same neural networks that enable us to solve equations or design spacecraft are the ones that allow us to feel joy when a loved one smiles, to grieve when we lose someone, to stand in silent awe before a sunrise. This dual capacity for brilliance and feeling is not an accident, it is our greatest strength. When we build technologies to connect with the brain, we are, in essence, learning to nurture that strength. We are finding new ways to listen, not only to signals and synapses, but to the unspoken emotions that bind us as a species. I have seen this firsthand in a small clinic where patients gather for group therapy enhanced by neurofeedback. Their sensors translate subtle patterns of brain activity into soothing visuals that help participants understand their own emotional states. One evening, an elderly man who had struggled for years with depression watched his neural waves gradually synchronize into a calm rhythm. He turned to me and said, "For the first time in decades, I feel like my mind and my heart are speaking the same language." That single sentence carried more meaning than any data set could convey. Stories like his illuminate a truth we too often overlook. Science is not separate from the human spirit. It is a continuation of it. The laboratory and the living room, the rocket hangar and the hospital ward. These are all spaces where curiosity meets compassion. And that meeting is where transformation begins. We must therefore protect that meeting with everything we have. As neural technologies mature, they will demand safeguards as robust as the discoveries themselves. Laws will evolve, but laws alone are not enough. We need a culture that prizes empathy, that respects the sacred privacy of thought, that celebrates diversity of mind as fiercely as it celebrates diversity of culture. Because the future we are shaping is not just technological. It is profoundly human. It asks us to look beyond the mechanics of neurons and circuits and to embrace the messy, beautiful complexity of consciousness itself. It invites us to recognize that every person, regardless of background or ability, carries a universe of potential inside their skull. Think of a world where this recognition is universal, where a child in a remote village has the same access to cognitive enhancement and mental health support as someone in the most advanced city, where breakthroughs in neural repair are shared across borders, not hoarded for profit, where the language of brain science becomes a language of global solidarity. That is a future worth striving for, and it is within reach. The same determination that has taken us to orbit, that has sequenced the genome, that has turned unimaginable theories into everyday technologies, can also ensure that the benefits of neural exploration belong to everyone. We have the tools, the intellect, and, if we choose, the moral compass to make it happen. This is why the invitation to be here tonight carries such weight. It is not simply a recognition of past achievements, it is a call to collective action. It asks each of us to become stewards of possibility, guardians of dignity, architects of a tomorrow where mind and machine evolve together in harmony. When I think of the road ahead, I return again and again to the image of a single neuron firing in the darkness. One tiny flash of electricity, almost imperceptible, yet capable of igniting thought, movement, love, art. Now multiply that by the billions of neurons in each of us, and then by the billions of people on this planet. The scale of potential is staggering. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not passive observers in this grand equation. We are active participants, sparks of consciousness in a universe that is itself alive with possibility. Our challenge, and our privilege, is to guide that possibility with wisdom and with heart. So let us leave here tonight carrying more than inspiration. Let us carry resolve. Resolve to push the boundaries of science without sacrificing the soul of humanity. Resolve to ensure that every breakthrough lifts us all, not just a fortunate few. Resolve to honor the infinite complexity within each mind as we reach for the infinite expanse beyond the stars. The journey ahead will demand courage equal to any spaceflight, patience equal to any scientific quest, and compassion equal to the deepest love we are capable of. But we have always been a species of explorers. We have always been more than the sum of our fears. Look once more to the sky, and then inward to the silent marvel of your own thoughts. There lies the proof that we are made for this moment. There lies the evidence that the universe is not only around us, but within us, waiting, as it always has, for us to awaken to our own boundless potential. That, above all else, is why we gather, why we work, why we dream. And that is why this invitation matters. Because the next chapter of our story will be written not by chance, but by the choices we make together. Choices worthy of the stars and of the extraordinary minds that gaze upon them. And so, as we stand at this threshold between what has been and what can be, remember that the real power of any discovery lies not only in its novelty, but in the way it reshapes our sense of responsibility. Every scientific milestone, from the first spark of controlled fire to the decoding of the human genome, has forced us to ask a deeper question now that we can: how will we choose? The same question echoes through every conversation about the mind. We are beginning to map not just the anatomy of thought, but the architecture of intention. We are starting to see how ideas form, how memories take root, how emotions flow and shift like tides. This knowledge is a gift, and like all great gifts, it carries an expectation that we use it to lift each other higher, to heal what has long been broken, to broaden what has long been narrow. I think often of a boy I met during a pilot program in a small rural hospital. He had suffered a traumatic injury that left him unable to speak. Through a simple interface translating brain activity into synthesized sound, he managed to say his first word to his mother in nearly 3 years. That word was her name. In that moment, the room fell silent, every face illuminated by the realization that we were witnessing something far larger than technology. It was love finding a way back through the body's silence. These moments remind us that the pursuit of understanding is not cold or distant. It is intimate. It is the work of caring for the most delicate and magnificent phenomenon we know, the human spirit, as expressed through the brain. And yet, even as we celebrate these triumphs, we must be vigilant. The mind is not a frontier to be conquered. It is a realm to be honored. We must create global standards that protect autonomy and privacy. We must ensure that the benefits of neuroscience reach every community, not only those with wealth or influence. True progress is measured not by the sophistication of our devices, but by the fairness of their distribution. This is where each of you comes in. Whether you are a scientist, a teacher, a policymaker, an artist, or simply a curious soul, you have a role in shaping how these discoveries unfold. Ask hard questions, support education, defend the dignity of thought, inspire others to see that understanding the mind is a shared human project, not a competition for profit or power. Because what we are really building is not just new technology, it is a new narrative of what it means to be human. One in which our limitations are not endpoints, but invitations to innovate. One in which empathy and intellect grow side by side. One in which we recognize that to explore the brain is to explore the very story of life itself. When I look to the future, I imagine a world where no child is left without care, where mental illness carries no stigma, where the boundaries between ability and disability are redrawn by compassion and creativity. I imagine cities designed to nurture minds, schools that teach resilience alongside arithmetic, communities that value listening as much as speaking. This is not fantasy. It is a direction, a trajectory we can choose if we have the will. The cosmos has always been our mirror. Its vastness humbles us, but it also emboldens us to reach beyond what we know. In the same way, the inner cosmos of the brain asks us to be humble before its complexity and bold in our pursuit of understanding. The stars overhead and the neurons within are written in the same language of energy and possibility. So as you walk out of this hall tonight, carry with you the awareness that you are made of both, stardust and synapse, infinite space and intricate thought. Let that awareness guide your choices. Let it spark conversations at your dinner tables, in your classrooms, in your workplaces. Let it remind you that the next great leap forward will not come from a single laboratory or a single mind, but from all of us choosing to move together. The invitation you accepted by being here is not one night's event. It is an ongoing commitment to curiosity and to care. It asks that we keep looking up and inward, that we keep building bridges between imagination and reality, that we keep faith with the remarkable potential of our species. Ladies and gentlemen, the universe has already given us the rarest of gifts: consciousness, connection, the capacity to dream. What we do with those gifts is the measure of our time. Let's choose to use them boldly, wisely, and with hearts open wide. Let's write a chapter that future generations will look back on and say, that was when humanity truly began to understand itself. The night sky is waiting. The neurons are firing. The future is calling. Go out there and let's make it extraordinary.